don't know if I'm live again. Here, it says live, 27 seconds. Get into the habit of this. Let's have some painkiller. I've just done whatever you do, a recording. I find it hard to concentrate at times because it brings up so much for me. And I suppose that's the difference between an amateur and a professional. But it is interesting. I listened to a guy years ago. I think his name was David, and he was talking about the program. And he was talking complete rubbish. But it was all very professional. He had a stage, and he was striding about talking this stuff. But it was complete rubbish. And the heading of it was precisely how we have recovered. And then he goes on to contradict the whole thing, the whole title of what he was saying. And I thought, well, we can't have this. So I tried to write back, but there's no comments. Oh, well, there you go. That's a handy little winner. Nobody can correct you. That's kind of dangerous. I thought that's not right. And why would he put no comment? Why would he be? What's his fear? Excuse me. Give us a better sit. So it troubled me, but then lots of stuff troubled me on that forum. People talk about a program that they obviously don't know anything about. And the great freedom of it is there's nobody there to shout you down. And also from my point of view, being constructively critical about what they're saying, there's nobody shouting me down either. As happens in AA meetings, nasty places at times, especially for people like me, big thumpers who step Nazi. These cringes, done it. And these are sober people calling it these names. Unbelievable. Then there's the other ones like St. Paul and his apostles. He's another sinister person. Anybody who can make a statement, what was it? I had people come up to me and ask me why I'm so happy. He said that. He goes to world conventions and things like that. He's very well learned and whatever it is, and protocols. And that's the kind of statements he makes in meetings and doesn't realise until I told. Just actually, it's quite offensive. Yeah. People come up to me and ask me why I'm so happy. I'd like to have a chat with his wife. Totally deluded, but there he is. Everybody loves him. He's got attitudes. He's got his boss. Very, very sick business. Very sick business. But doesn't like the man on page 18. Not particularly inspired by the man on page 18 at all. Without whom little or nothing can be achieved. But Paul's not interested. This is a sickness. So this was on a Skype meeting. We were clashing. And Paul and his mates all got together and had a group conscience. Didn't include me. And decided because it was getting too controversial that they were going to close the meeting. Go figure, as our American friends would say. Go figure what you mean is getting a bit contentious. bit confrontational at times. Yeah. Welcome to the real world. But no, that was his excuse, because it was getting too contentious. And so they decided they were going to close it down. Didn't discuss it with me. Didn't discuss it with a few people. Quite disgusting behaviour. Quite disgusting behaviour. Sorry, I got distracted with that. Get distracted quite a lot. There was a lot of stuff running through my head. But I mean, that was the end of it with this guy Dave talking complete rubbish about clear-cut precise instructions, and then going on to do the opposite. And you couldn't respond to him. All right, fine. Forget about that. Every now and again he would crop up as, sometimes you would go through a list or something, it would be Dave. And just recently, because this goes back 10 years, 2012 I think it was, when I first bumped into David. And it transpired he'd relapsed. He was one of these, what would you call them? Mind people, people encouraging people, and whatever, stimulating people. And he'd become one of them. Which kind of figures, because in his video he was quite relaxed and quite, not like me stuttering away here and stammering away. And well practiced, no doubt. But he'd had a relapse, and he had died. And then stuff came up from that. And people, oh yeah, it was a real shame and all that stuff. And, yeah, he's such a lovely bloke and da-da-da. I said, whoa, wait a minute. The guy was a very sick guy. He'd done all that stuff, but he didn't allow comments. So what was he worried about? He talked completely utter rubbish about the programme. And yet here you are, some of you are saying he was a wonderful bloke and he'd done this and he'd done that. And it's really shocking. And I think one person agreed with me. Another person got really quite upset because she knew, personally, I'm only based on, my criticism was based on watching his video and what he was saying. And what he was saying was that clear-cut, precise instructions, simple programme. He's going to talking about precisely how we have recovered. And then he goes on to talk about his own way of doing it. How confusing is that? And why would he need to do that? All you have to do then is say, I don't need to say nothing. It's all there in the big book. Or let's start talking about the big book. He didn't do that. He didn't do that at all. I found it offensive. And of course, he got all upset because he died and killed himself and all that tragedy. But it doesn't get away from the point. He was a dangerous man. He is full of them. He is full. I went to the man. I got the programme. I walked away with steps 10 and 11. And my list of people I had to make amends to. And my gratitudes. And my whole world opened up. My whole world opened up. It was just amazing. And I went to A&Es and I started talking about it. But of course, I'm still only a child, so I'm a bit naive, and I'm in there telling them, being evangelical and all that stuff about it. And they reacted badly. Yeah, and I mean, they reacted badly. Put me down. I went back to the man. I said, you're all slagging me off, they're calling me names, and step, that's it. He said, well, what kind of programme are these people practicing, John, when they use that terminology? Yeah, right enough. Yeah. But I says, the sad truth is, John, this, by the way, is 25 years ago. The sad truth is, if you talk this program in those rooms, you will end up drinking coffee on your own. I thought, how can that be? Naive. How can that be? But it was, my experience proves him to be correct. It's quite shocking. I've had the privilege of taking many, many people through this program. Set up a big, the 12-step revolution basically in the East End of London. A guy invited me down to do a chair. He'd helped me talk. And the whole thing took off. And I was taking people through this program every week. Every week. I won't tell you the number approximately because you just wouldn't believe me. You wouldn't believe it. It's not possible. It is. And I suppose I dedicated my life to it. Hardly surprised my marriage broke up. Plus the fact that my wife didn't have a program and she had a lot hidden away. And she smashed the marriage, and that's okay. No problem with that. But I've got a big problem with what she'd done with my children at that time. Very vulnerable ages as well, 10 and 12. Two little girls just reaching that point in life. And there she is smashing it and lying to them. To the degree that I don't have a relationship with my youngest daughter. Don't know what she's been doing for the past 20 years, which is tragic. I tried to make contact with her, but it wasn't very helpful, so I just left it. She's all the woman she'll ever be, so it's entirely up to her. My elder daughter, Nicola, it was a bit difficult. She was caught betwixt and between. Amy went to her mother, she kind of went to me, and all that stuff. And she was going through what she was going through. So once again, the blind lead the blind. You know, and she went to university, which was good. Amy went to university as well. But wasn't clever. Wasn't clever. Very strained, very strained. And here was me riding my white steed with this program. And in a sense, rightly so. Very, very few people on this planet have got the understanding that the alcoholic 12-step recovery program has. It's a very, very powerful, powerful experience. And it's open to everybody. It's open to everybody. And kind of contact with Nicola. She went to see a therapist. God, everything changed then. Okay, fine. Please understand that 50% of therapists aren't worth a damn, and the other 50% is potluck, which is a pretty reasonable way of describing them, certainly in my experience with treatment centres and so-called therapists, especially the alcoholics who become therapists, oh, for God's sakes. And if they don't have a program, shocking. Shocking. I met one guy in a treatment centre, therapist, and I was causing trouble even then by being argumentative, like a child, asking difficult questions and all that stuff. And this bloke said to me, he said, what was he said? Can't remember what he said. Imagine that. I can't remember. Damn. It was really profound as well. But I have memories of that guy. I have good memories. He seemed a decent bloke. But some of it better in the inside looking out than in the outside looking in. Okay, he was a bit, he used a very crude term to describe the looking in part. And yeah. So yes, my Nicola fell into the clutches of this person and has got a bit strained then. And I've been pretty ill over the past few years, so serious back problem. Housebound, living on my own, housebound. It's just becoming a nightmare. And Nicola came back all emboldened by this therapist. And she started arguing and debating stuff with me. And I said, Nicola, I don't really feel fit for this. I'm not. I really am not in the mood at all. This had happened a few times before. And I said to her, fine, okay, bye-bye. Have a good life. Don't forget to send me the money you owe me. That's another story. How did they go into that? Yeah, and these people who think they know what they're talking about, these dangerous people, and how they shout down people at me and call me names and whatever else. And it's the true statement. I don't think I've had a phone call. I've had a handful of phone calls in the last 6 months from people in AA. And I've met a lot of sick people in AA who think they're well. I've taken a lot of people through the program who were victims of these sick people. And because of what I was able to do with them, just blew them away. And I remember wee Terry. He was an Arsenal fan. Whatever. He was on death's door. He was in that treatment centre I was talking to you about. And he came to me and asked me for help. And I took him through the program as best I could at the time. Yeah, I was pretty capable then. And I've seen him for years, but at the time, last time I talked to him, he was fine. I said, well, yeah, we'll get into the rooms and carry your message. He said, no. I said, why not? He says, because I'm not going to be treated the way you're treated, John. See, he'd heard a lot of backbiting and a lot of stuff, before he got involved with me. And he had a lot of people slagging me off and all of that stuff. So he knew more than I did about my reputation. I didn't even know I had a reputation. And that was his conclusion. I'm not going to put myself through what you put. I'm not going to let them slag me off the way they slag me off. That's a sad testimony to Alcoholics Anonymous. And very much the case of the loonies have taken over the asylum. And that's a fact. AA does not work. The program works, but AA doesn't work. And where to get that from? Well, that's in the late 60s, late 50s, early 60s, it was, somebody wrote something in one of the magazines, Build W or whoever, maybe a group of them. But basically, things were going wrong in AA. The message wasn't there anymore. They were more into reading some of the new American stuff and all the fancy therapy stuff, And Hazeltine, they set up their interpretation of the 12-step recovery program. Years since I've seen one of those books. And so the guys at me decided that they had to put in a little reminder around codes, which were sobriety, a reminder of what they're about, what the meetings are about. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol through the practice and teachings of the 12-step recovery program is the sole purpose of an AA meeting. Sole purpose. Nothing else. And why would they write something like that? Because they had to try and warn them that, hey, this is all going wrong. This was the 60s, early 60s. And this is how they warned them. It's all too subtle if you ask me. It's all too subtle if you ask me. And it's get worse. If it doesn't get better, it gets worse. Clarence Snyder talked about it. 1985. Hawaii, one of these conventions. Hawaii or Honolulu, maybe Honolulu, doesn't matter. And he stood up and says, I don't get newcomers anymore. I only get them when you lot have screwed them up. Clarence, a home brewmeister, who was there right at the beginning, a pioneer. And there he is, in front of 5,000 people, basically telling them, this doesn't work. It's a subtle way of telling them it doesn't work. I just tell them it doesn't work, and they give them the evidence. Very powerful statements, very powerful statements. The first one, 1959-60, Clarence Snyder, 25 years later, basically saying the same thing. All they get them when you lot screwed them up. Neurotic laughter. And if you want this program, you can have it in 2 days. Come to my house and you can have it in 2 days, which is exactly what it says in the book. Exactly 2 days to take steps forward tonight. That's this program. Wow. But I know that for a fact because I've had the privilege of doing it hundreds of times. Where did I leave off? Where did I get extracted? Distracted. After often Clarence and all this, and all the dilution of the message, and human nature being what human nature is. And why make such a fuss? Well, because people are dying. People are bumped into the kind of people I bumped into, who were so-called, put themselves up as so-called sponsors. Some of them didn't even know what it meant. I mean, the first guy, the first fast talk Irish bloke, I just picked him because he was popular and funny and all that stuff. But he didn't have a clue about the program, you know. Well, you're just a sponsor, you're a buddy or whatever, you know, just hang about for up natural advice or whatever it is, but I didn't know about the program. And the second guy I asked was good old Trevor from Potter's Bar. Nice bloke. Bit of wisdom as well. Bit of wisdom. And he gave me my first experience, I think, when he noted on the phone that you sound angry, John. Well, sound angry. Something upset you. It's just 4 o'clock in the afternoon. She said, well, yeah, a guy called me up this morning. Oh, yeah. Didn't cut you up, John. I thought he's misheard me. Said, a guy cut me up this morning. She said, yeah, I heard you, but he didn't cut you up. And he didn't play games with me. Some of them play games, you know. He didn't play games with me. He says, he cut up a car, John. Bang. The light went on. He didn't do it to me. This person didn't know I was driving the car. Could be all sorts of reasons, other than just the normal frustration of rush hour in London. And here I am taking the person. And 7 hours later, I'm still thinking about it. He noted it. You sound angry. There's power in this stuff. Negativity of it. Yeah, he's blown it away. I was a driving instructor at the time. I had to pass everybody. If you were in front of me, I had to get in front of you. With my kids and my wife, family in the car, no matter. Just a maniac. Must be hold on tight because the kids loved it. The wife, the ex-wife, she was just sitting there or whatever. I don't think she said a word. Of course, if you marry somebody like me, you've got a problem. You need to go and see about it. But don't go yelling on the kids, probably just manage to get the program, read the book, follow the instructions. So this is what it's all about. I can sit here and criticise AA all you want, and there's plenty to be criticised. Plenty to be criticised. People's lives matter. People's lives are at stake here. So it all leads back to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I knew nothing about. Hundreds of meetings Don't have a clue. I thought the programme was in the 12 and 12. For, what was it? I thought for 10 months, hundreds of meetings. And I thought the programme was in the 12 and 12. Until I listened to Joe and Charlie. That opened everything up for me. Good old Trevor wasn't very good at explaining the programme, especially step 4, confused the hell out of me. But he had that wisdom and a nice guy, quiet guy. And what was it he said? Don't know what he said, I've forgotten. That's what happens when you get to my age. So much running through my head, especially with this stuff. Yeah. We need people who know what they're talking about. The people who wrote the book knew what they were talking about. So, what is it about this book? I didn't know. Didn't have a clue. It was written by a bunch of ex-drunks. When it started in 38, I believe, and finished just about the end of the year. It was about 11 months. And they were skint. Why do they call it a big book? Because they had to use cheap paper and that was thicker. According to one story I heard. Apocryphal. Is that the word? Does that suit? Does that fit? I've discovered lots of new words, even at my age. In my childlike way. Even at my age. And so they had their adventures from 35 when Bill and Bob met, all that stuff, and here they are at 38, nothing. We better write a book because people are screwing with this stuff. People are going about shouting and bawling about it. And Hollywood actors shouting and bawling about it, how wonderful it is, and then the next morning they're found lying in the gutter, looking down their nose at people. Yeah. And so we better get this preserved. So they decided to write the book. They created that book and within a year, 12-step recovery program, 12 statements of fact based on the experience of the people who wrote the book. And every step begs a question. How did they do it? And every question is answered in the first 103 pages of that book. That's a fact. Read the book. If you're like me, you'll need some help. An adult child. I've only ever heard me saying that. Original to me. There you go, you can put that in my tombstone. Yeah, tombstone. Never heard any of that talked about the first year. And then I heard Joe and Charlie, and they blew me away, and they helped me to realise that, hey, this program's in this book. Wow. They had a joke. I was listening to Reel to Reel, but I was listening to just one ear now the other. There you go. And then I heard Joe laughing. Big Texas guy, big fat Texas white guy. Oh, but he's laughing at it, so I rewound it. I had the remote control as well. Really fancy that day. And they were talking about the woman who mixed up the message, page 69, with the message on page 96. Page 69, sexual conduct. Page 96, giving freely of what you've got. I realised that was quite funny. A thing that had dawned on me. These people are talking about a book. I've been 10 months in A, 11 months in A. I've done hundreds of meetings. That's me just making the connection between the 12 steps in the big book. The main reason why is because I went to a step meeting and they used the 12 and 12. So I thought the 12 steps were in this book. They weren't in the big book. Truly shocking. Truly shocking. I then started pointing out to them they ran me out of town. What? We don't want to hear that. That's the truth. Don't care. Bugger off. Go set up your own meeting. Right, fine, I will. And I did. But that was me discovering that the 12-step recovery program was in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Wow. That opened up my world. That opened up my world. The AA certainly didn't help. Certainly did not help. I eventually found a man who could take me through the program, having tried to. And that's shocking as well. That's truly shocking. You know, I'll refer back to the book, Safest Place to Be. Page 18 of the book, it talks about a man, the ex-problem drinker, who's found this solution to spiritual experience, who's in possession of the facts about himself and the steps. Right? I'd never noticed that before. Nobody'd ever talked about it. Nobody'd pointed out. But here is a huge piece of information right at the beginning of the book, because it has to be right at the beginning. The ex-problem drinker who has found this solution, who's in possession of the facts about himself, can help an alcoholic when no others can. A mad living. Read it. It's in page 18. There you go. I'm not going to do it for you, but just read it. Without whom little or nothing can be achieved. So this person's essential right at the start. You don't get that here. You don't get meetings where they've got people who are ex-problem drinkers who've found this solution. The most important part of the thing, they don't focus on that at all. They talk just the usual rubbish. Somebody does a chair. Yeah, sad, happy, all that stuff. And yeah, thanks very much. Hope you got something from that. No, not really, man. Not really. It's like David, the guy who died. Simple program, clear cut precise instructions, and then goes on to talk a whole lot of rubbish. But why would you need somebody like David to sit and talk about the program? It's there. Just take the person through it and that's it, done. It's like riding a bike. You don't have to keep going back for lessons every week. It becomes intuitive. You do it without thinking, like driving your car. You do things instinctively, intuitively, because you've done it so often you know it's correct. The highway code is very similar to the 12-step recovery program. The 12-step recovery program is the AA's highway code for staying sober. That's cool. I like it. Don't get it much simpler than the highway code, do you? They even do little drawings, which an idiot like me can understand. Wow. And you stick to the rules, because if you don't, you could kill somebody. That's why they created the highway code. Read the history of it. They were smashing into each other, running over each other, whatever else. Got to do something here. So they put together this highway code and they put a lot of thought into it, an awful lot of thought into it. And they come up with that, and it's very simple, straightforward book. Maybe if they put little drawings in the big book and little diagrams, that might have helped, as it does with the highway code. But there you go, that's the analogy. It's very profound. But here we are, right at the beginning, page 18, talking about somebody who's indispensable. So therefore it's every group's responsibility to make sure that those people are there and that they're agreed on book, and that's it. There's no contradictions, no nothing. And that's what you take it through. And according to the time scale. Oh, that brings up another one. When I was going through with a man, I thought, right, fine, good, there we go. And then, before anything, he told me that I'd have to do a study of the big book. I said, well, here's me getting all excited. And bang, the door slams shut in my face. I study the big book. What do you mean? Oh, this is what you do. I've got the mind of a 10-year-old mate, and you're asking me to look for words for God, definitions. There were 7 words. You betters and you musts, stuff like that. Just astonishing. And I thought, that's me finished. I'm not going to be able to do this. I phoned up one guy, Johnny Campbell. Yeah. Bit of an evangelist with Johnny. Don't know why, a bit creepy at times. I said to him, I'll just write it all down. That's not the way to do it, John. He tried to suggest something. I was totally shattered. I'm almost swearing here at the thought of it. This man's playing with my life. And the worst part of it is, he doesn't know he's playing with my life. Now that is sinister. That's Hannibal Lecter stuff. He doesn't know he's screwing with my life. He thinks he's trying to help me. It worked for them, so it worked for me. No. If it's in the book, and these people are advocating it because they've experienced it, then we'll go for that. That's all I wanted. Anyway, we set that aside, and I ended up eventually getting taken through the steps. But what a horror. If I'd just given up at that, what was it that was driving me? Was it God? Because just forget it. Just never mind it. They won't phone me because I won't phone them and all of that stuff. And this is in AA. And it's shocking. It's truly disturbing. So what do you do about it? We have to set up AA meetings that carry this simple message accurately. We've done it in Luton. There was a wee meeting in Luton, and a very sick little meeting, people talking, people, all the usual drivel. And it's a treatment centre town as well, so you were getting people from treatment centres and talking fucking drivel. And I know because I worked in with them, well, I volunteered in with them. Didn't work. Yeah, eventually we got this wee meeting together and we decided, me and Jenny and what's her face? Can't remember. But we decided that we were going to have the meeting the AA recommended, a topic discussion meeting. And they gave us a list of topics, specific and suggested. Okay, there's been 200. They're on the internet. And I've recently found out, the last year, discovered there's a few in there that shouldn't be in there. And I remember one because of that trouble. And so we set up this meeting. And it's the best meeting in London, as far as I know. Don't know of any. And it's just wonderful. We give people, there's all right, and give people, right, have a look, right. What topic do you want to discuss? such and such number. You've got the number right, fine. You give us 5 minutes on that. And if anybody wants to respond, fine. If not, we'll move on. Invariably, within an hour, we get through at least 6 topics, to the degree that we end up having a conversation, basically a conversation, and throwing in the topics. The name, right, I'm talking about this, blah, blah, blah. Right, well, we're going to get back to that. Right, okay, fine, right. A couple of minutes on that, 2 or 3 minutes. Well, it's absolutely marvelous. It's just, wow. It's wonderful. But I think it's worthwhile pointing out, well, certainly one extreme. There was one guy, but he was mentally ill, so really kind of pass over that one. But there's this wee guy, he's somewhere up the A1. Wee Jimmy, his name is, Scottish bloke. And I met him when I first got sober. And the man who took me through the programme invited me up to this meeting. It was his home meeting. It was Friday night. And I was to do the chair. Oh, what? The chair? And just wee Scottish guy there. So Jimmy, his name was. He was a mean midget. He looked an angry wee character, you know. And I recognised that type from Glasgow. Because I'm from Glasgow. Didn't mention that, did I? And angry wee man. Didn't like to talk about the programme. I was describing it. Yeah, it's Express Train to Heaven. Yeah, and what was the other one? Express Train to Heaven, and I can't remember. But he had 2 critical words about the programme. Damn, why can't I remember that? Express Train to Heaven and something else. But it was derogatory. And he was argumentative. I remember a couple of times I had clashes with him. About 20 years, maybe 20 odd years. I didn't make too much of a deal of it. And I didn't even know he was about. So we set up this wee meet, topic discussion. This wee guy, Jimmy, turns up with this other young guy. And Jenny's doing the captain. She's the secretary. Jenny's a hard nut. She used to work in the pub. She used to chum guys out, you know, and all that stuff. And this wee Jimmy makes an announcement. He says, well, we have come down here, him and his deputy. What do you say? He said, we've come down to close this meeting down. What? What? You what? Yeah, this meeting's, and yeah, we're going to shut it down. Jenny said, don't think so. And I said, I then piped up, because him and I have never got on with each other. It was Express Train to Heaven. That was the one. And microwave recovery. That was the one. Microwave recovery. This horrible wee person was upset. And I don't know if I had them doing a few chairs. They're just an angry person. God knows why anybody would invite him to do a chair, because he didn't know anything about the programme. Totally rejected the programme. Still doing it, interestingly enough. I met him recently. Still doing it. But wee Jenny wasn't too happy with that. I said, well, I don't think that. That's when I piped up. I said, what are you doing? You cannot do this. You know, you've no right to do this. What are you doing? You know? And that's when he get really, as soon as he heard my voice, and he's standing up, he's posturing, you know. And so I stood up. I think I was healthy at that time, yeah. So I stood up. I mean, he comes up to my chest, you know. Quite funny in a sense, but he's serious. He's serious. And then he starts to try and throw punches. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. That Jerry jumps in, chucks him out the door. I mean, his deputy, who's, oh God, who's this horrible wee character. How he ever got that into his head. How he ever got it in his head. I have to say that twice. It's just a total fruitcake. And there he is, 30 odd years sober. Oh, there's another one as well. God. There's wee Laurie. And I make no excuses for naming him, shaming him. He's from Colchester way. I was out having a run about down the coast, because it's quite near the coast. And my back's pretty shattered by this thing. So I get to the meet, eventually find it. And this wee guy's walking across the road. I say, excuse me, mate, is this a AA meet? Because I'm not getting shame or anything about it. It's a AA meet, though. Or he says, yeah, it's up the stairs. If you're John Mac out there, says, yeah. I said, oh, I'm not going to hear any of your rubbish. I can guarantee that, mate, you know. So I had to go up these stairs, you know. God, wooden. So I eventually get in, and I'm actually struggling through the whole day I've been, and I'm kind of knackered. Maybe I shouldn't have been there, but I got there. And I decided I'm going to share a link to leave, you know. And so I share. And this wee guy, Laurie, he's an ex-journalist, a man of words. And I'm sharing about the book being a book of instruction. Yeah, he jumped in. It's not a book of instruction, it's a bit of suggestions. Excuse me, thank you very much. If you don't mind, you know, a bit of decorum. He's 30 odd years sober, so he claims. So you should know how to behave. And the secretary comes in, really cut that out. So this is not the way. And it's really done the job very well. You know. And this horrible wee character. It's a book of suggestions. Well, in actual fact, when you look at it, up to the point, because they're not pushing anybody, they know who they're dealing with, and they're only introducing. They're always talking about them. They don't talk about you, they talk about themselves. So up to a point, i.e. step 3, when they make the invitation to follow their path, if you take up that invitation, then they're going to instruct you on what to do, obviously. You know, so as the driving instructor teaches you how you're driving, and he doesn't say nothing. That's how insane it is. And here was this character saying, just so. It's a book of suggestions. Totally missed the point. It becomes a book of instruction when you take up the invitation. Obviously, they have to instruct you, or you won't know. Fucking idiot. Excuse my language here, I screw my face up because I hate these people. And I'm compelled to pray for them, but I'm not. It's like St. Paul and his apostles. You know. Why are you so happy, Paul? God, makes you cringe. And that's what he said once. I'm leaping now from this wee character to the other wee character. Some of the seriously sick people I've encountered. The one who perhaps the most threatening had a certain excuse. He was registered as mentally fucking ill, you know. So these people exist in AA, and the two that I've mentioned have got almost more than 6 decades, 10 experience of AA between them, but not a clue about the program. It's a book of suggestions, total film, and yeah, professional. If he'd read the book further, it surely must have come to the conclusion, it's now changing to a book of instructions because we've taken up the invitation. He didn't make that one out. you'd have to ask him. And that's what the wee guy, Jimmy, he is actually a member of a group where he's on the chair committee. There's 3 of them. There's a secretary, whom I asked why he's not asked me to do a chair. He said, well, it's not just me. He says, there's another 2 of us. He says, oh yeah, who are they? And he knew he had to answer me. I says, well, one's Bob, the guy who took you through the program, and the other one's Jimmy. All right. So that's why you've noticed. Maybe because of Bob as well. Maybe because of Bob. But then I know more about it than Bob. Lovely, quiet spoken Irish gentleman. But he still insisted that I study the program before I study the book before I take the steps, which is totally wrong. He didn't know that. I thought he was going to. So that's kind of scary. And I pointed out recently, because I've come across him recently, and I pointed out recently to him, I went up to his house a couple of times and had a chat with him, and his wife doesn't like me. But he's getting old. But I pointed out to him that was wrong. And I'm owed an apology, which I am. But it's no big deal. Again, I haven't received an apology. So I have to assume that Bob still insists or believes that studying the program is okay. When in actual fact, my experience of it, i.e. taking people through the program and discovering that they had been through this process, I asked them about it, inquired. I said, no, most of the people fell away from it when they were doing it. Meeting up as a group and talking about things. And that brings me on to the next one, because there's recently been a Skype meeting or a Zoom meeting, whatever, which they've set up to study the big book. And it's a young guy called, what's his name? Joel. Joel's his name. He's a theologian studying theology. I think he's 21. The old timers saying he can spill more drink than he's had. Sometimes we've got a point. And, but I pointed out to Joel how misguided that was and how wrong it was. And it doesn't say anything about it in the book, in the clear-cut, precise instructions. And he tried to put up an argument that shot it down in flames. But he still wasn't interested in changing the Jews. All right, fair enough. He's always very polite, very nice, and very genuine, I was talking to him and he said, we're starting up an internet meeting. Because of the shutdown, there's no meetings. Well, it's been a bit difficult lately. But it really isn't a problem. I worry about people who are in AA and who are newcomers and ones who don't have the program. I worry about them because we must be under serious pressure. And then you've got the guy setting up this Zoom meeting, big book study. He invited me in to listen in. I said, but you know my views on big book study. So why are you inviting me? He said, yeah, but it's different. It'll be different, blah, 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 but just come. So I did. I registered in. I started saying things that they didn't like. They wanted to stick to this. Right, read the first paragraph, and then this is the book of instructions, the big book. Clear-cut, precise instructions. And they've got another book to instruct you on how to read the instructions. You couldn't get, it's just insane. It's just totally insane. It's based in Dallas, Texas, somewhere. It's been going for decades. Probably because nobody's ever challenged it. And I got a wee bit upset. I said, well, I'm not sticking to the point. Well, what is the point? What's the point in making there? And my only interest is the newcomer and making sure that we explain things in a clear-cut, precise manner. And young Joe came in and said something. Then he phones me later on, and he's upset with me. I told you this, I told you that. No, I told you that I don't agree with it, but you insisted that I'm fine. So there you go. You reap what you sow. To use a biblical theological term. How very funny. This young guy's convinced he's correct. And he tries to go about it in the sense like this Paul guy, St. Paul, all very calm and relaxed, and, all that stuff. But here he is on the phone, he's upset with me. And I had an awakening about what he was saying and the error of his ways as regards studying this and studying that. And it came to me. The people who wrote the book, the pioneers, not exactly sure, all of them, but we know Dr. Bob, Bill, Clarence Snyder, and some other people were there. Clarence Snyder, the homebrewmeister in the big book. So there was this group of people at this time, between 38 and 39, 11 months approximately, we put this together. This group of people were obviously inspired. God, yeah, okay, fair enough. Why not? So everything they put down was countersigned by God. And saying, right, okay, right, this is fine, right, step 12, right, that's it. That's it. We'll put in those stories just to help people who are not too sure whether they are or whether they are not. And that's it. So I put it to young Joe. They didn't need to change it. They didn't need to study it because it was simple, clear-cut, precise instructions, which they emphasise. So why are you trying to do it? These people, these pioneers, were inspired. It's okay for me, I'm quite comfortable with the idea that they were inspired by a higher power, God. Obviously a higher power, because they were useless, weren't they? Just a bunch of extra screwed up the two calves. Yeah, here they are, creating a masterpiece. And you're trying to tell me that you arrogant little fool, can add to it. Unbelievable. So you try to play God now. You can add to what God gave them. How arrogant can you get? And that kind of shocked him, I think, because he's not been back. He's just gone into silent mode. He's obviously meditating on it for weeks, trying to forget I said it. Because, yeah, you're trying to improve on what God gave them, and you're trying to improve on it. And you're trying to explain it in a way that's easily understood. It's like the guy Dave. It's clear-cut, precise instructions, Dave. We don't need you. And you don't get it, Dave. You don't realise that you're contradicting yourself. Clear-cut, precise instructions. How can these people be such fools? A doesn't work. Oh, yes, it does. A doesn't work because if you go to enough meetings, as I do, as I have done, it's just not there. Over 27 years, I'll guarantee you that. Just stick a pen in the book, and I'm going to meet in London area. But I'll guarantee you I won't hear anybody talking about the book as it is, the programme as it's written in the book. And you may get one out of a meeting of maybe 15 people. And the rest share back or whatever, and they make no connection. So we look at some people turn around and criticise a guy, preaching, come here and preach to me. Maybe you need preaching, pal. And I advocate this 12-step recovery program. And that's all this should be about, not listening to an ignoramus like you. They argue with you. Take your own inventory first. Like, why are you arguing with a guy? What's the basis? What are your criticisms? Are they well founded? And what was the other one regarding that? And there's he talking about that, what is it, the heading of it? It's in that little book, as Bill sees it. Page 215, page 115. The politica, they talk about the politica, I'm not exactly sure what they meant by politica. But they talk about this person who criticises AA and, just to get their own ends or whatever else. And you do get people, clever people who come in and try to twist things to suit themselves and cause a bit of consternation and upset me because it confused me and it upset me. I remember that. And this sounds like an intelligent bloke. But what they say in it is really interesting. They say that before you go and judge this person, you have to take your own inventory. Why are you doing this? To what purpose? Are you correct? You must take your own inventory first before you take someone else's inventory. And if you find flaw in your own position, then you have to go back and take your inventory again. That's really sound. It's very, very sound and safe. Before we criticise anybody else or challenge anybody else, we must be sure in our own inventory. And we must be agreed in our own inventory. Perfect, fine. Perfect use of this program. Then you can go back to the person. And maybe we're a bit of luck, they'll change and they join in. But if they don't, if they dig their heels in, you just have to pray for them. Yeah. Simple as that. There's so much wrong with AA. I get depressed even thinking about it. So this has been a bit of an effort. But I know that this program is inspired. Now, what inspired that bunch? I call it God. You call it whatever you want to call it. But there's absolutely no way they put it together without some help. They'd have screwed up at 2 cars through the road. They would have argued when they do the thing was not. Bunch of dry drunks. Right. And yet they come up with this masterpiece. Try telling me there's no God. There you go. So AA is screwed. And I suppose that's human nature. What's the only talk kicking it away and dilute the message to the point where it doesn't exist anymore. Except, of course, these people were aware and they wrote the book. And the only thing that matters is the first 103 pages of that book. They've said 12 steps, 12 statements of fact, based on the experience of the people who wrote the book. Step 1 identifies the problem, powerlessness. Step 2 identifies the solution, the power in yourself. Step 3, you make a decision. Steps 4 to 9, you act on that decision. Steps 10 and 11, you practice until it becomes intuitive. We will intuitively know how to handle things that used to baffle us, always talking about themselves. Which results in step 12. Wow. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we practice these principles. We try and help other alcoholics. That's it. Have a good life. You're welcome to get back to me on anything I've said. Correct me, because I'm wrong. Because if I'm wrong, I need to be corrected as soon as possible, because it could injure. But I don't think I am. But I'll be interested in your thoughts. Have a good life. Bye.